There is a ministerial forum that I'm part of that meets several times a year, and it's all, so much of it recently has been about protecting the church. Protecting the church from frivolous lawsuits that make no sense to anybody except the judge who renders the verdict, and it's shocking. That's one of the reasons that we are doing this. It's also one of the reasons that we are redoing our Constitution, because there needs to be protective measures in our bylaws, which is our Constitution. One of the things that you're going to hear at the end of this is about membership. And it is vitally important, based on all the counsel that we're getting, is that for you to work, especially with children, you need to be a member of West Pines Baptist Church and in agreement with our bylaws. We're redoing our bylaws because there are some things in there, quite honestly, that were not biblical. But just so you know, if you're not a member of the church, I encourage you to fill out a membership form. Maybe you're a college student here and you're a member at your home church up north or wherever. Be an associate member. That just allows you to work with our children and in those children's ministries. There's a true or false test. It's been around. I've used this for probably 15 years, but it just gives some insight on the importance of why we're doing what we're doing. Number one, child sexual abuse always involves physical contact with children. True or false? That is false. Number two, most child molesters are male. That is true. Child molesters are usually strangers. That is false. 3 out of 4, 75%, are known by the victim. Victims of sexual abuse suffer no long-term effects. 1 out of 5 molesters begin their activity before age 18. That is true. Only a small percentage of victims are male. 27% of women experience, and this is rising. The last statistics I have are even greater than this, but they're not. The data's still out there. 27% of women experience some type of abuse. 16% of men experience some type of abuse. Number 7, most churches screen workers. What do you think? That is false. Child leaders cannot be held liable for child sexual abuse. It's false. Some child sexual abuse victims have won settlements of over $1 million from churches. It's true. A child molester who has experienced a religious conversion no longer presents a threat to children. That is false. Here's a scary statistic. 2 out of 3 caught child molesters will molest again. 2 out of 3. Number 11, child sexual abuse is criminal in all 50 states. That is true. Child molester may have over 500 victims in a lifetime. That is true. The average is between 50 and 60 victims. Number 13, churches have in the past been supportive of victims of sexual abuse. That is false. Unfortunately, it often happens with leaders within the church, and the leaders are protected more than the children. Shame on the leadership. So, what do? We have put together a Reducing the Risk seminar, and that's what this is today. And again, many of you have already been through this, so it's review. But I want to make sure that you are aware of what's going on. We have added to this. If you have been probably the last 5 years, this is going to be, some of these things are going to be new to you. Why do we do this? Number one, here are our goals. And please understand this. Number one, to make our church a safe place for children. That is the priority, number one reason why we are doing this. To protect the children. If you are a parent at West Pines Baptist Church of a young child and you're sitting in this class, you should be encouraged that we care for your kids and that we want to protect your kids. and that we are taking steps in order to protect your kids. All other goals are subservient to this one. It really is, as one person used to say, it really is all about the children. And it really is. Number 2, to lower the church's legal risk by establishing a program that meets, and you ought to underline this, the test of reasonable care. In every meeting I've had, whether it was different attorneys, different insurance people who represent the insurance company that we have our liability through, it's always about passing the test of reasonable care. What does that mean? First, and it's under number 2, what policies and procedures does the church have regarding selection and supervision of church workers, both paid and volunteer? What do we do? Here's what we do, and you're going to see it in the moments ahead. Number 2, second, to what degree do these policies and procedures follow in case under consideration? What has happened at West Pines Baptist Church, I'm just going to be real honest with you right here, we've had policies and procedures. We have a plan set in place for the selection and supervision of church workers. We have, number 1, under control, and we've done it, I think, for about 15 years. But number 2, we have been lax in enforcing the policy and procedures. And I'll be honest, one of the first ones, because we want to be friendly to people who are coming into the church, and we have allowed non-members, you may be one of them, don't be offended, we've allowed you to work with our church, with our children. Shame on us. If we say that this is our policy and procedure, in a legal battle, in order to pass the case of the test of reasonable care, if we say this is our policy and procedure, we better operate within our policy and procedure. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you're not a member but you want to work with children, we want you to work with our children if you pass this process. But we have to ask you to be a member. And we have not done a good job at that. So, the last statement under number 2, the resource kit that you have accompanies this guide, attempts to help churches establish a safe harbor of reasonable care. We want to establish a safe harbor. Number 3, we want to protect you, to protect the workers in your church from false allegations of abuse. And because we live in a litigious society, that is happening more and more. People are looking for money, and it's easy to get money out of the church. And people are sue happy. And we don't want you to be sued, and we don't want to be sued. And so we put together this policy and procedure to protect you. Number 4, to protect the church while maintaining the integrity of the church programs and the staffing needs. We want to protect this ministry. And we don't want to handcuff the church. But at the same time, we want to put some measures in place where we feel that the children are protected, the children's workers are protected, there are policies and procedures that are enforced, and you put it all together, I think that it is a healthy place for our children. Some of the things that we've done recently, and I want you to know about it because you do work with children, there are cameras all over this building now. And there have been accusations that have been made, and people that have like, well, that's not really what happened. Well, unfortunately, and I don't tell people that even in the conversation that I'm having with people that we're, in a sense, accusing, well, we have video footage, because we do. And that's not criminal. Don't be reading into things. It's not criminal, but it's questionable. And so when I interact with you, or Tina interacts with you and say, hey, we'd like to talk with you, I just want you to know, as a children's worker, and this may dissuade you from even wanting to work with children, there's a very good chance that what you did was on video. I know you're going like, dude, that like is infringing on my privacy. I don't like that. Well, you know what? What's our first goal? To protect the children. To protect the children. And so there are, in front of both of the men's rooms and the ladies' rooms, there's a video surveillance of everybody that comes and goes. On the east wing, the west wing, the foyer, there's videos. At the entrance, there's videos. And I'll be honest with you, we're not going to be taking out, we'll probably only be putting in more. Because based on the legal counsel that I get, those are significant things that we need to do. So, everybody understand the goals. This is why we're doing this. Next page. The top, it says the church's defense. Of all that I have to share today, this is probably the most nuts and bolts in practical application of what we're doing. The first part of the church's defense, and again, this is our policy and procedure. This is what we do, and so we have to do. This is what we say we do, so this is what we have to do. Okay? Number one, records. There are 3 lines if you want to fill them in. Attendance, discipline, report forms. Here are the records that need to be taking place. And honestly, we're not great at this. We're working at it. Attendance. You need to make sure that if you are in a class teaching children, if you are in an Awana work or meeting with a group of children, if you're in children's worship, Sunday school, if you're in children's choir, is Cheryl here today? I saw Heather. Is Heather here? Brad, relay this to Mom. That was one of them that I thought about, because sometimes children's choir happens like on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, and they're getting ready for the children's program. That's a time that we need to have attendance for who's here. So just make a note, and I'll try to remember that as well. Tina, where's Tina? Make a note of that. That was one that just came to my mind as I was reviewing these notes. But we need to make sure, because here's what happens. There are accusations that are made, and when things are fleshed out in the court of law, at times when there's a records, the accusation on the date that the accusation was supposed to have happened, both parties were not even at the church together. And the attendance records proves that. It sounds pretty simple, but that's one of the advantages of having attendance. Number 2, discipline. You need to make sure that if there's any discipline, and please listen to this, if there is any discipline that takes place, Johnny hits Sally, and you have to take Johnny, and you put Johnny in the corner for 5 minutes. You say, okay, we got a timeout, Johnny. You need to go, Johnny. Or you call, Mr. or Miss So-and-so, and they have to take Johnny, and they have to go to another part of the room. You have got to report that, because here's what's happening, and it's happening in schools. There's a new word out there, and this was not even a word. I looked through my notes from back in 2000. I went up and I taught this in several different places, really, several different states. I never even had the word bullying in my notes. But what's happening now is, because bullying is a hot word, it's not only being accused between students, but now the accusations are coming from the adult. The adult is bullying my child. The adult is disciplining my child, which I don't want to be, this will come into parenting class in the next couple of weeks. There's very little in the home. So when somebody says, Johnny, I really want you to come over here, that child, nobody's ever told that child what to do. And I know that doesn't happen here in other churches. And all of a sudden that child goes home and says, Mr. Dave, he yelled at me. Well, Dave didn't yell at him. Dave said, you're beating the kid up. You give him a bloody nose. Come on, you need to sit over here. But to him, it's like, why is Mr. Dave being so mean to me? Child goes home and tells Mom what happened to Mr. Dave, and all of a sudden, and trust me, this has happened. I'm the one that gets the phone call, not on Mr. Dave. And so and you're going to see there's record forms. Whenever there's any discipline. Now, I don't think I need to tell you, don't touch a child. Please don't touch a child. Do not touch a child. If there's a child that is totally unruly, and this has happened in the past, what we have done is there are several law enforcement officers that are part of our church. And we will have a law enforcement officer brought in and help discipline that child. And if times we've had to remove a child and take that child home, and we have a law enforcement officer, typically in a sheriff's vehicle, with 2 adults, take the child home. And it's happened. It's happened. We have to take discipline seriously, but there has to be records. We don't touch them. We remove them. And quite honestly, if it gets out of control, we will call 911 and we will have the authorities come to the church. One of the things in the class, the seminar that I went to recently, was the churches that have had to do that because of fear of the child is out of control, for fear of laying hands, for fear of disciplining, for fear of removing the child from the rest of the class, to protect the rest of the class at times it has to happen. And today, as silly as it sounds, it could be a 3rd grader. Law enforcement has to be called in. That's the discipline part of it. The other record is the report forms. In the back of your paperwork that you have, the pamphlet, there are 3 report forms. They're listed. They're accident, incident, observation. These are very important, and it seems like we go in seasons when these are like turned in almost every week, especially Awana. Awana Game Circle used to be like a triage unit. But here's what they're used for. The accident is used typically in the Awana Circle. Somebody scrapes a knee, any type of medical care, an ice bag, you got to fill out a form. A Band-Aid, you got to fill out a form. A poke in the eye, you got to fill out a form. The forms that you have here are in the kitchen. There's a mailbox system that we have for all the pastors, all the deacons, all the financial, all the children. There's a form there, a stack that says report forms. And there are stacks of all 3 of these report forms there. So if anything happens on a Sunday or Wednesday or whenever, go there, fill it out. My box is right there. Put it in my box. What we do with these, every form that has ever been filled out and handed into me has been part of the deacon agenda the next month at our deacons meeting, which are our corporate officers. We want a paper trail showing that, yes, we have a policy, yes, we have a procedure, and yes, we are acting on it. Very important. You need to fill out that. That's the accident. Here's the incident. The incident could be discipline. Okay, you've had to discipline Johnny. Fill out an incident. Could be inappropriate behavior. You need to fill out a form. Could be fighting or bullying. You need to fill out a form. You need to let us know the incident that took place. Fill it out. The last one is the observation. I think we need to do this more. People were very good at doing this. And I think one of the reasons we're doing this is I need to remind you of the importance of these forms. An observation would be something like, in the parking lot, after Awana, the parking lot's a little dark, and there's kids that are playing in the parking lot, and I was pulling around a hedge, and the hedge was higher than the child, and I did not see the child on the other side of the hedge. That's an observation. If you were to look out into our parking lot right now, tell me how many hedges there are. There are no hedges. Why? Because somebody made that observation, and we went out later as a staff and were like, you're right. This is very dangerous, especially in the back. The hedges were high. We tried to trim them. We couldn't get them trimmed down. We just removed them. But that came through an observation. People loitering by the restrooms. Let me know. So-and-so, we went over there. It just seems like so-and-so was always in. Let me know. Sometimes it's as simple as an awkward look or an awkward comment or you're observing things that just you're not the judge, you're not the jury. I don't think you are. But what's our number one goal? Protect the kids. Fill out a form. I'll be the bad guy and I'll never mention you by name. Unless I feel like I'm in trouble and then I'm going to throw you under the bus. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. I won't do that. Fill it out. And then what happens, there's a policy and procedure. When in doubt, report it. You're our eyes and ears. I will follow it up. The deacons will be informed of it. It's part of the minutes of a deacons meeting. And again, and you can read the procedure in a little bit here. You need to fill out those forms. Any questions on those forms? Accident, incident, observation. Very important. It's an incident. Under the incident, yeah. I think what I mean by, because there's other things that are going to be incidents of accusation. What I'm saying, put the names of the person who potentially could be. Put the person of the disciplinarian down there, and fill out all that paperwork. Good. Anybody else? Number 2, rules. Here are 3 rules. There's a 2 adult rule. Always. Another one is there's no physical contact, ever. Although we do have what's known as the Kitty Evans rule. Many, many years ago, when we first did this, Kitty said, but Pastor, I come and I sit, and the kids come to Awana, and these kids don't have any love or affection at home, and they come and they love on me, and I love on them. And I said, you're right, Kitty, I don't want to take that away. And this is one of those things that we want to put parameters in place to protect the children, but we don't want to rob them of what they probably need, which is love and affection. And so what I told Kitty, and what I will tell you here, here's the only exception to the physical contact. If you are an older lady and you sit in the middle of the room and the children come to you, and it's in a very public setting. And Kitty did that for a number of years, right over in the West Wing, and it worked. But we had to do that for protection. Here's the third one, liability release form. And that's one of the 3 rules, 2 adult rule, no physical contact, liability release form. And that form is only given, and it should never happen without Tina knowing about it, if there's something going on off campus. It used to be the Awana Olympics, taking a group to camp. We will not take children off campus without a liability release form. And we have one that we have in the church office. And the reason that we don't have that here, I don't want you to have it to fill out and pretend that you turned it in. I'm just protecting the children. If you have any plan of ever taking anybody off campus, we want to know about it. And the one reason we will find out about it is because you're going to ask us for a form. And then we can say, we don't feel comfortable with that. I really don't believe in slumber parties anymore. And we can go from there. Jeff? There's a blank one that you can get for the kid to fill, the parent to fill out, giving you if you're transporting. It's a generic thing. Yep. Yep. But it's specific. It's generic in the date. It could be. Good. Mr. Young. I would say yes. 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 Right. Again, the adult rule, that is probably the greatest challenge, and it's because of we've dropped the ball. When you're in the nursery, if you're in the nursery and you're there early and your helper has not showed up and a parent comes to drop off a child, ask them. Oh, I'm sorry. 18, okay, I'll say it. The 2 adult rule, it's if a child is dropped off and you're the only adult, ask that parent to stay with you until your helper comes. Okay? If you are an Awana worker and a child has to go to the bathroom, go as a herd or go with an adult. Don't ever be alone. Yep. Good. Go in first. Good. The little one should be over here in the room next to him. Good. Tina. Yes. Okay, in Puggles with the younger children, if you have younger children, we have the smaller bathrooms in the east wing. Use those bathrooms. You can leave the door open, be a human barrier if they want privacy. But again, helping them, and it's written here in a couple pages about using the gloves, no direct contact. Right. Good. No men are to ever help any children going to the bathroom. Good. Larry, you need to stop allowing the children. Bill says no men are changing diapers. Not even home. No. Thus saith the Lord. All right, moving right along. Number 3 is screening. And this really is what you're doing here today. There's a questionnaire. It's the back paper. You're going to fill that out. That's part of the screening process. The second part is an interview/background check. That's the second blank down at the bottom under screening. At times, I will interview you. I will ask you pointed questions. I do it randomly, but we also do the background check through protectmyministry.com, and we give your information. That's why we need, and a lot of people are hesitant with Social Security, driver's license, but that's how we are able to do the background check. And then the other part of screening is the membership at West Pines Baptist Church. And all children's workers, questionnaire, interview, background check, membership, West Pines Baptist Church. And that's very confidential, although I would like to use some of you folks as sermon illustrations and how, by the grace of God, how far you have come based on the criminal background checks. But I won't. Beth, question. So we have those 3 steps: records, rules, and screening. Everybody got that? Again, that's the nuts and bolts. The next couple pages are really review, and I'm not going to go over them in detail. These are for you to read. It does give some clarification on some of the questions that have been asked about changing diapers, about the use of gloves, supervision of workers, the reports. I want to mention the Policy Committee Task Force, which is number 3, under how will West Pines reduce the risk, and then number 4 as far as our plan. You are not, I'll summarize it like this, you are not the investigator of an accusation. The policy and procedure is that you are the eyes and the ears, that you fill out a form, you turn that form in, and the pastors and deacons are going to be the ones that do the investigation. We are going to be the ones that are speaking to the parents. We are going to be the ones that are going to follow through. Here's the event. Here's the incident. Whether it was with a child that was bullying or claimed to be bullying, you fill out the form. Let us do the investigation. That is so important because of the influence of the media today. Again, these classes, seminars that I've been to, what happens is one of the church workers says something to somebody. Everything is YouTubed today. And it just has created firestorms in churches because a Sunday school teacher made a comment to a parent and the parent happened to be taping it. And it's a mess. At a certain level, you need to trust us, hold us accountable, and ask us, what are the follow-ups? What has been done? I filled out a form. Has there any follow-up been done? Has the parent been contacted? Follow up with us. But let us do the investigation. Clear? Very important. Priscilla. Good. The facts, the date, the time, and the names. We need the names of the people who are involved. The next page says at the top, steps to follow. This is what the pastors and deacons will do. Not you, but this is what the pastors and deacons will do. Again, one thing to have a policy and procedure, it's another thing to act on it. This is how we act on it. This is our policy, our procedure, how we act. The next page deals with, and I just put this in here for your information, things that you need to look for. If you see some of these things, if you sense a problem, if there's a concern, please fill out an observation form. You might find a child that comes in and is reacting in a way towards another adult that is really strange. And it has happened over time, and I don't want to get into great detail with children and how they are reacting to a male. And it's really, it's beyond awkward. And so they filled out an observation form. There was another time that a child came in and they were sharing stories about what was going on at home. And an observation was filled out, and I and another deacon went and talked to the child, and we wanted to make sure it wasn't embellished, it was real. And the long story on that was that I and a police officer went to that home, and there were charges that eventually were made, and unfortunately the child was removed and ended up being raised by grandma. But I believe we got that child away from a very volatile environment. That happens. And oftentimes it's because of what is heard. It is what is seen. And I don't want to encourage you to read into things and make something that is not there. But at the same time, if there's a pattern of behavior, please let us know. Again, what is our number one reason for doing this? To what? To protect the children. And unfortunately, in 30 years of ministry, I see more and more things that kids are just in really, really tough environments. The next one is just again, you can read through this, rules to control the relationship. And this is going to be some of the details about never touching a child, about males and where they're supposed to not be, and the 2 adult rules, and the nursery workers wearing gloves and never being alone with the child. It deals with many of the questions that were asked are here. And I'm not going to read them because really it involves the church doing everything we can to protect children. If you follow those 3 points of the records, the rules, and the screening, all these other 11 are going to fall into place. But I do want to provide that for you to read. Questions? Here's what you need to do. You need to fill out a form, and unfortunately there are people that are not here, but Tina has a list of people that are working, so we will hunt them down. You need to fill out a form. You need to fill out this application question and turn that in. You say, well, I've done that before. I've done that 3 times. It's okay. Fill it out, turn it into Tina, and we will take it from there. Yeah. And it's front and back. It's front and back. Kathy. Kathy has a question. Very cool. Very cool. Note to Tina, we need to get some large T-shirts. Good point. Bring them in. Good question. Anything else? I am encouraged, aren't you, Tina, by the number of people that are here?
Make sure you signed in on that sign-in sheet that went around. Did everybody get to do that? If not, raise your hand up.
Where's the sign-up sheet now? Where did it end up? All right, if we make sure. Anything else, Tina? Thank you very much. Fill out your form. Turn your form into Tina. Use the forms, observation, incident, accident. They're in the kitchen. You are our eyes and ears to protect our children. Yes, Chris. That's a gray area. Once I hear and get the form and I do the investigation, I am. I have to report it if I sense the level of concern is where I am obligated to report to the authorities, yes. You, because we're just asking you to use a report form, are not obligated. And again, that's a gray area that they're now sometimes you will, if you fill out a form, you will be the one reporting with me, depending on the level of seriousness. Thank you very much. If you have other questions, see Tina, myself, and we'll try to answer those. And Paul? Good question. They're in a secret place just left of the second cabinet in the third drawer.